Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make the sea turtle wind chime. The sea turtle, the crab, the starfish, and the clam shell are all made the same way. There is a lot of room for interpretation in this kit. I'm going to give you a few pointers and show you how I put it together, but really truly it's up to you. There are two things that you do need to be aware of. This big center ball right here is sort of the clacker that makes the noise. So however you tie your wind chime together and whatever lengths you choose, make sure that that center ball hits the chimes somewhere. Okay? So your kit includes the turtle or clamshell or crab or starfish that's already attached to this part because that's easier. You'll have your metal chimes, you'll have a couple of glass baubles and bits, and you'll have some beads. You will need a ruler, and you have the monofilament as well in the kit. You'll need a ruler and either a pair of cutters or a pair of scissors. I'm going to show you first how to add the chimes, or how to make the chimes so that you can tie them on. I make all the drippity bits first, and then when they're all done, I tie them to the top part. So with the monofilament, monofilament is slippery. The knots tend to get slippery. So usually with any knots that I'm doing, I cut more than I need because it just makes it easier to tie a knot. So I'm going to cut about 18 inches of monofilament. I'm going to slip it through my chime. Oops. At any time I'm going to, wow. Okay, put my glasses on. Okay, 5th time's a chime. Okay, I'm going to even up the ends. I'm going to add a floating bead. So I'm going to show you how to add a floating bead. I'm going to go through this bead. And then to make this bead float, I'm going to go back through the exact same way that I did when I went through it. Okay, and that makes the bead float. Almost all the time when I get all my bits and pieces done and I've gotten them tied on to my wind chime, I'll go back and add a little bit of glue to my knots. And if you really want this bead to stay exactly where it is, you can add a little bit of glue there too. But you can see how this bead, even though it floats a little bit, you can still move it around a little bit. I am going to measure 4 inches from the top of my chime to here and make an overhand knot. That knot will come in handy when I go to tie it, attach it to the top of my chime. Okay, I'll show you one more time how to do that. You cut 18 inches of monofilament, which is plenty. Go through the chime, even up the ends, go through one of these beads. These beads are lightweight, they're acrylic. These beads are glass. Pretty and pop. I'm going back through the bead in the same way that I went through it to begin with. I'm going to slide it down. I'm going to tie a knot 4 inches up from the top. Okay, I've got all 3 of my metal chimes done. I'm going to now work on the side drippity bits. This is what comes in your kit. I chose to put this as the very center. You can choose the fish. You can put this however you'd like. It's really kind of the fun of making this. Make it how you'd like to make it. So for the side bits, I'm going to start building it from the bottom up. I am going to cut 36 inches or 3 feet of my monofilament, even though the side bits on my wind chime only hang down about 10 inches, but I'm going to need all this to do that. So I'm going to just randomly start with this, and I'll show you how I attach them. Again, it's basically a simple knot. You can do it however you'd like. I like to have my knots cinched right up to where my bit is. So I tend to hold the knot. I'll get it down as close as I can, but the rest of the way I'm going to go ahead and pull very tightly on the the knot, and you can tell that's how slippery the monofilament is because it just slid right down there. I'm going to measure up about 4 inches from the bottom, and I'm going to tie a knot here. I do this because it helps me, I think, tie another bit on better. I'm going to tie this bit on. So I've got my knot here. I'm separating my monofilament. I'm putting it through, and you can tell it can't hang down anymore, which is sort of the point that I was looking for. And I'm going to tie this right here. Another overhand knot right down on top of that drippity bit. And I'm going to continue making my drippity bit. I think on this one I'll probably put, I don't know, let's see, this color next. Oh, I've got to do my knot. So I'm going to go up about 4 inches, make my knot right here. It's easier for me to attach. I'm going to put that here. Tie an overhand knot through, right down on top of that little bauble. And if it's not all the way down, I'm just going to go ahead and pull it really tightly so it goes down. Last piece, maybe I'll do about 4 inches again. Tie this on. Tie a drippity bit. Tie an overhand knot. And then I want this to hang down about 4 inches, very similar to the chime. So I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot about 4 inches from the top. 3 or 4 inches from the top. Right there. And that's one drippity bit. I'm going to work on the other. For the second drippity bit, I think I'll add this fish in the middle of it, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to take another 3 feet of monofilament. 2, 3. I'm going to put, I think, this piece on. This piece on. Again, feel free to add some of these glass beads at this point if you want to, wherever you would like to along the way. Once again, I'm getting my ends even. I'm tying an overhand knot right at the top of that glass piece. I'm going to tighten it up by pulling my monofilament apart and tightening up. I'm going to go down maybe this time about 3 inches. Tying an overhand knot. Whoops, let me do that again here. Take that out. Got a little overzealous. Okay, so about 3 inches here. I'm going to slip this through the top part of the fish. And it stops where I want it to. I'm going to tie an overhand knot. I'm going to put both of those strings behind the fish though. I'm going to tie an overhand knot. Do you see what I just did there? So instead of having part of the string in the front, I brought them both around the back. I'm going to tie an overhand knot here. Cinch it up. And let's see, maybe measure up about 4 inches or so. Overhand knot. Another drippity bit. And I think on this one, maybe I'll add, do my overhand knot here. Maybe I'll add a floating bead. So I'm going to add a floating bead here. Again, I'm going to want 4 inches from the top. The floating bead goes through. I go back through the hole the same way I went through it to begin with. And that gives me my floating bead. And then I'm going to tie a knot about 4 inches up. Okay, I've got the two sides done. That's one side hanging down, and this is my other side. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the center bit, and I'm again going to do that from the bottom up. Okay, so I have my two side pieces done. I have my chimes done. I'm going to show you how to do the center part, and it's pretty long. The center strand from the top of this part to the bottom hangs about 20 inches. So I'm going to cut roughly 5 feet of monofilament. Always want to give myself plenty to work with. I'm going to double it up, put it through the starfish, because this is what I chose to hang down the center. And just like all the side pieces in the chimes, I'm going to pull the pieces together and do an overhand knot without it getting tangled. And on the center strand, I think I measured about 5 inches between each bauble. On the side pieces, we measured 3 to 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and measure 5 inches up, tie a knot, overhand knot. Add a little bit of glass. Tie an overhand knot to secure it. You can see how it stays right there. At this point, you can go ahead and add some of these glass beads as well, which I think maybe I'll do because it'll be pretty. So let's just add a few. Okay, that's the fun part. You can choose your beads, you can add them random. Clearly that's what I'm doing to show you. You can also make these beads a stop bead, just like you did the larger white beads. But you get the idea. If I added beads in between the bits of glass, I'm going to tie 5-inch knot from the top of this glass up here. Add one more bauble of glass. Tie my overhand knot. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and make this bead is the important bead here, because this is the one that hangs down in the center and makes the sound with the chimes. So I'm going to make that a stop bead. I'm going to go through once and go back through. Okay, I'm going to move that right to about here so that hangs. And then I'm going to put that about 5 inches up, and then 5 inches from that, I'm tying another knot with one more piece of glass. I separate my monofilament, and then I tie an overhand knot right there. And then I'm going to tie one more knot about 3 inches this time at the top of this glass, and that will hang down. And I have all my bits done, and so now I'll show you how to put them together. So those are all the bits. And again, you can put beads, you can put the beads anywhere you'd like. You have plenty. I'm going to go ahead and tie all my pieces now that I've gotten them made to the center. Make sure that all of these are completely closed before you start tying your bits on. I'm going to start with the center, and I'll show you why this top knot was so important. Because when I put this on, it kind of stops it from cinching up and going too far, so that in theory, if I measured correctly, everything will hang where I want it to. So I'm going to tie this on. 1, 2, 3. pull it really tight, and then you can clip that off. When you put the chimes and the drippity bits around, make sure that you alternate chime, glass, chime, glass, chime. So I'm going to tie, again, here's my top knot. I'm going to tie that to here. I always tie 3 knots. 1, 2, 3, and tie it very tightly. These are the knots that if you want to at the end when you've got it hung up and you've adjusted everything, you can go ahead and put a little dab of glue right there. I'm going to tie the rest on and then I'll show you what it looks like. So here's the finished wind chime. It's beautiful. The colors on this are super cool. The glass part and the metal part. I needed to adjust this bauble once I got it hung up. The cool thing about making the floating bead is you can adjust it. Mine was a little long, so I wanted to adjust it once I hung it up so that it would hit the chimes. You can string your beads along the center. You can string your additional beads up here. Again, you can move these how you see fit. I would put a little dab of glue once I'm happy with where everything hits. But the fish hits the chimes. It's got a nice sound to it. See you next time.